The call to interfaith work seems to be stirring in many religious leaders. It's as if, as much as we love our own religious traditions, we're being called to a greater good, a greater connection, a deeper connection. And the beginning step is to reach out to each other through our interfaith work that we're doing. One World is also founded on the idea of interfaith work. Melanie and Chris graduated from an interstate seminary. Linda is involved in that program as well. One thing I'll say, we are lousy with ministers around here. We're just all over the place. But it's that coming together and everyone bringing where they started from into a greater good and into a greater connection. I became involved in interfaith when my husband decided to do a blog talk radio show called Open Minds, Open Hearts, where we were working with the interfaith connections. And one thing that's really neat about blog talk radio, going on the computers rather than going to like a radio station nearby, you can talk to people all over the world. We talked to people in New Zealand as guests on the show. We had someone in England who was a guest on the show. We had someone from Israel that was a guest on the show. And so it was fascinating to see that this feeling that I was having that is reflected here in this community of interfaith is also going on worldwide. One of the people I want us to make sure we go see, Mona Joshi, has a Hindu, in Hindu they always have a guru, which is the head of whatever denomination we can call it that they have in the Hindu faith. And her guru is Sri Sri Ravi Shankar, not the musician. He's the spiritual leader. When he has an interfaith gathering, 6,000 to 7,000 people show up. And they are from all over the world. We may not have heard about him here in this country, but he is internationally known. And Mona has his outreach here. And so, in fact, Linda was there when my husband Scott was dying, and Mona led us in a prayer, and we had this whole circle around. And I thought my husband was kind of out of it because he was kind of going in and out. And said, hold hands, and here he had his eyes closed, and all of a sudden I saw his hand come up because he wanted to be part of that circle, because interfaith was so much a part of what he was feeling as well. One of the greatest things that we did when we did the radio show is that we had, maybe many of you attended, when we had a panel discussion. How many were there? Anybody was there when we did that panel discussion? We had an interfaith panel discussion at One World, which we recorded and we aired. And one of the things that I thought was interesting is the Marietta Daily Journal came over, and we got this huge article written. And usually the Marietta Daily Journal, they come and they take a few pictures and talk to a few people and they leave. And what I saw is that this guy stayed for the entire program and gave us just a fabulous, fabulous article. And if you see here, we have one gentleman who's Muslim and a friend of mine who is pagan, all in the same panel, sharing how they viewed things from their religious background. So it was really, really a powerful, powerful day we had at One World. Among the many guests we had on the program were two gentlemen that wrote the most interesting book. This is the neat thing about having a radio show. The publishing companies, when people have written a book, send you the books for free. So I've got just rows of books that people were sent us. And the book they sent us was The Coming Interspiritual Age. And it's put out by Namaste Publishing, which I thought was kind of cool. But they're describing that we are at the beginning of a new age. In this wonderful book, they talked about the feeling that I was feeling, that Scott was feeling, that John's feeling, and perhaps you're feeling. That we're ready for something even more than the faith traditions that we've had. One of the things that they said about interspirituality, it represents the culmination of years of international interfaith and ecumenical exchanges centered on the common experience within all spiritual traditions, a sense of profound interconnectedness, and what it implies for how humans should behave both individually and collectively. I love that, how we need to behave, and respecting each other's faith, learning about each other's faith, being grounded in whatever tradition is comfortable, but also recognizing that these can all fit together because we have more in common than we have differences. A recent poll said that 80% of Americans felt that this interfaith communication across all religious traditions is important. And one of the things that Melanie, who has just been all over the place doing all kinds of things with the Fulton County commissioners, but they, after the shootings that they had down at that club in Orlando, remember that? I'm going to read just part of this, but this is a statement that the Fulton County commissioners put together. Whereas this act of hatred and violence perpetrated on American citizens is reprehensible and unworthy of a great nation and her people, and whereas Fulton County, known around the world for its commitment to equality, having played an important role in the civil rights movement, and for being a national leader in the principles of diversity and acceptance, is committed to values of acceptance, welcoming, and fellowship with those of all faiths, beliefs, ethnicities, and cultures. And whereas other hate crimes have been committed in recent years, both around the nation and in Fulton County, based on race, religion, national origin, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, and other characteristics, and whereas representatives of Fulton County's many cultures and faiths can strengthen relationships and minimize misunderstanding through meaningful dialogue. This is from our commissioners. They're really taking this to heart, that we need to come together. That's why we're getting all this support, because this is what this is who we are. This is what we want to do. And so they're right there. Well, Melanie, you've done both an invocation, and you've done a closing prayer, and you've connected with other people that are, isn't there someone that's working with Interfaith on the commission?
His deputy administrator is running the panel, and she is very active in coordinating interfaith activities. What we're doing is bringing it up here to North Fulton, which is very exciting.
Yeah, and they're looking to us to do that. So we are positioned in one of the most, this is who we are, this is what we're needing to do and wanting to do, and we're getting all this support coming here. I don't know if you've heard about this, but in the last 2 months, 60 Jewish community centers have had bomb threats across this country. Many of these community centers have nursery schools, have preschool and daycare, and it's not hitting the news. And I Googled it, because I heard about this. If you see me wrapped up in all this stuff, I've got edema, which is that swelling that happens to many people that have cancer. So as I was being wrapped up on my legs, we started talking politics with the gal that was doing this. And she's the one she's Jewish, and she told me about this. And so I Googled it, and yes, it is happening. That there seems to be a lot of hate going on, and that it's showing up in places that you wouldn't, for kids, places where kids are. I don't understand that. And so the fact that recent polls said that 80% of Americans are wanting an interfaith dialogue gives me hope, gives me promise. So here's the question. How do we individually show up as an interfaith community? What does that look like? What will we need to know to communicate effectively with those who are challenged by the idea of religions coming together? Well, first, one of the concerns I have heard from people is that there are of course it's fear, fear is part of it, but that we're trying to promote an idea of one religion, and nothing is further from the truth. Because not only religions are focused on a religious leader, but they also come out of an individual culture. And so you can't remove one from the other. When we went to the Sikh temple here in Roswell Friday night, I mean, I rested all yesterday. I was worn out. It was a party. And we just really had a good time. But it was all done in another language, but we were just feeling the energy that was there. And we were laughing about people walking in and out, kids were running around, but everybody was just joyous and celebrating. What I came away with that is that I love the ending where they took their sacred text and put it on their head. And then everybody marched up the stairs to a very special room where they had all their sacred texts. And it was just their idea of showing respect for the writings. And because we all had our heads covered, but the men even had to have their heads covered. And in the Sikh tradition, they don't cut their hair. So you see if you see someone in a turban, they're probably Sikh. It's only in the movies do they see Muslims wearing turbans. Usually if you see the Muslims that I've seen, they have a little cap that they wear, but not a turban. And so the Sikhs have all their hair there, they have these marvelous beards, and they were just wonderful. They loved having us there. And it was really, really a party, and they even fed us at the end. And so it was Indian food, and we're going to hear more about that because we've got an invitation from them as well. So even with the globalization process that is going on now, thanks to television, movies, and the internet, the cultures that we face every day in our lives has a great deal to do with our faith traditions. So I don't see us all coming together or any idea of one faith being viable, but it is a concern that you may need to address when you're talking to someone about interfaith. Reassure people that interspirituality is based on what we have in common with different faiths, not what we have different. Interspirituality is about finding a way in which the various religious traditions, as I said, can fit together with the common goals of what we all have. In fact, in Arizona, they have an interfaith organization that is statewide, and they focused on the Golden Rule. And the Golden Rule is in some size, shape, or form in every faith tradition. They even got with the government and have a license plate that they have produced that has the Golden Rule listed on the bottom. So there, again, we're seeing governments being part of what we're doing with interfaith. We're not alone in this. We have more in common than we have difference. Interfaith focuses on the commonality. Second that we can do is learn as much about other faiths as we can. I know Melanie and Linda and I have attended interfaith community initiatives immersion weekend, that for a weekend, Chris, did you go on? Okay, I think you went on. For like a Friday and a Saturday, you visit all these different faith traditions and learn about them. And it's really an exciting time to go and do that. But we're doing it in our own way, where monthly we take these trips to all these different faith traditions. And this year we're going to be focusing on the neighbors, because North Fulton is just rich with different faith traditions, and we want to get to know them. We want to be good neighbors, and we want them to know us as well. Also, you'll see them listed in the announcements, Interfaith Community Initiatives, or ICI, has contemplation groups where we come together and we just stay in the silence for about 20 minutes, and then a question is asked, and we discussed it from our different faith traditions. And that goes up at the Istanbul Turkish Center in Alpharetta, which is really an easy drive up Alpharetta Highway. And so that's another way of getting to know people and the commonalities that we have, and even the differences we have, and discuss it in peace and loving way. Third, and maybe this is the most important, what do we do when we're confronted with interfaith prejudice? Maybe you hear it on your own, but I heard it and I was sitting right back there where you were sitting, right here in this church. a man came that was his first time. Of course, we like to get to know everybody who's here for their first time. And I sat back there and I was just kind of sharing who we were and what we were doing, and I told him about that we went to the Hindu, the Mandir temple, we went to the mosque, and he looked at me and he said, well, you know, the only true Muslims is ISIS. And I said, I beg your pardon? He said, oh no, ISIS is the only true Muslims. And he said, look at this. And he had on his cell phone, he called up a version of the Quran, and what it said was that it is the duty of every true Muslim to lie to infidels. I didn't confront him, I didn't challenge him. I just said, well, that's interesting, let me write this down. So I wrote down everything he was saying, didn't get into an argument, didn't, get one-upmanship or anything like that. I was more interested in, like, where is he coming from? So I wrote down what he was quoting. And I went home, and of course I have my 3 translations of the Quran. And then I called Kamal, who runs the contemplation group up in Alpharetta. And I said, this is what I heard from this guy. And he said, I said, it's not what it says in any of the Qurans that I looked at. In fact, what he was quoting, and let me just read what it says, let not the believers take those who deny the truth for their allies in preference to the believers. Anyone who does that will isolate himself completely from God, unless it be to protect yourselves against them in this way. Basically, he's saying, hang out with other believers that believe the same way you do. Isn't that what we do when we go to the different churches or temples or mosques or synagogues or wherever we go? But then I thought, there's a propaganda version of the Quran out there, and people are believing it. And I thought, this really bothered me. When I talked to Kamal, I said, what is this anywhere in any of the readings that you have in Islam? And he said, as a matter of fact, no. They asked Muhammad, peace be upon him, that if you stole something, can you still go to heaven? And Muhammad said, yes, in under certain situations, yes, you can still go to heaven. And then they asked him, well, if you kill somebody, can you still go to heaven? And he said, there may be situations where you may have to defend yourself or something like that, so yes, you can go to heaven. I said, if you lie, can you go to heaven? And he said, no. Exactly the opposite of what this guy was trying to tell me. So my question to you is, how would you have reacted? Is there another way that you would have reacted to someone like that? Anybody have a situation where you had to deal with someone that was very prejudicial against a certain faith, whatever the faith tradition is? Jay?
Yes, I have a lady that I will see this Thursday that I go drive Meals on Wheels, and she is a Muslim, and she was so excited about me coming in and talking to her, and she said nobody around talks to her, and so she was just thrilled with what I was telling her about our church and everything, until I said something about our minister was gay, and she said, what? And she said, well, they're going to hell, and you're going to hell. She was so happy at the beginning. And so that was like a couple of months ago. And I've missed going and talking to her. But since then, she's trying to convince me to be a Muslim. And so she's given me all these places on the internet that I should go look at. And I haven't seen her for like 3 weeks because I've been out of town. And so I go see her this Thursday. So pray for me. But it's like that, I just sit and I talk to her and we have a good time.
I love the fact that then she asked your name and you said your name was gay.
Oh, right. Right, that was so funny. I said, what's your name? And she said some kind of name. I thought she was Jewish at first, because she was on the phone talking to somebody in Israel when I first went up. Anyway, then when I was leaving, and I said, what's your name? And she said, well, you can call me just Susan or something, because my name is so hard to say. And so then I said, she said, what is your name? And I said, my name is Gay. She said, what? Gay, G-A-Y. And she said, oh my goodness. I said, you know, I said in 1940 it meant happy. That's all it meant, I was happy. And she had a hard time getting over that one, but she still wants me to come and see her. And I'm hoping she doesn't think that I haven't come because I have a problem with her, but so I'll see her this Thursday.
Okay.
And,
Well, somebody
it's gonna be
else.
fun.
Thank you for that. Somebody else. Yeah, Tim.
Just an acquaintance listed several, I don't know, 8 or 10 different verses in the Quran, quoting, so to speak, how it kept saying killing Americans and killing Christians, and that's what they're supposed to do. It wasn't really much. I just kind of replied, you know, that's an interpretation and just to increase the rhetoric, and it's taken out of context. And kind of wanted to start to escalate it, and I just kind of walked away from it. Just what you said, there's some interpretations only to increase the rhetoric, only to get the hostility up and further that hate between the groups. And I went back just like you, and I looked up different versions of what it said. And you know, what's going out there as an infidel, yes, is just equal to Americans and Christians. So anymore, it's just being put out that that's what the Quran says, is to kill Christians, Jews, and Americans.
And what it really means is anybody that doesn't believe in the book, whatever if it's the Bible.
And that gets into the interpretation part.
Exactly.
I got into a discussion actually one time with my brother about, you know, the Bible even is, yeah, it's scripture, and I look at it and I read it, but it's still interpreted
And
by
translated.
humans.
Yeah.
So many years ago, even, and then throw in context and language at that time. So I'm not saying I don't believe in the Bible or don't believe in the scripture, but you have to read it and look at it and take that, as I say, and put it into your own context. And so every single one of us in this room probably could have a different interpretation of the Quran or the Bible or whatever writings. So I don't necessarily lean on those writings a whole lot. I try to go, as I've told my brother, I try to live from my heart. Because I believe God is in my heart and He's going to direct me on what to do. And I can't say I do it all the time, but that's what I'm working on.
Right. Well, you know that there's a scripture that says, so be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. Actually, the different translation said, so be inclusive as your Father in heaven is inclusive. And you go back and you read the passage, and it is a whole different understanding. And that's one where God has the rain to fall on the good earth and the bad earth, and has the sun on the sinner and the non-sinner. So be inclusive as your Father in heaven. And I kept saying, be perfect. I'm supposed to be perfect like God? I don't think so. I'm never going to measure up. Did you have your hand up?
Yes. Well, I grew up in like a very conservative home and upbringing and religious upbringing. And so like a lot of the beliefs that I have, like my family doesn't share. So, you know, when they say, oh, well, you should believe this or you should believe that, I'm kind of like, well, I just believe we should love everyone, and that the more we give love, the more we receive love. So I just like try to be more loving and positive about it.
That's the best way to
Like
answer.
that
Just,
come up, so.
they're going to be where they are,
So-
but we can speak from where we are
Yeah, exactly.
without trying to change them.
Yep.
If they change, that's good. But, you know, that non-confrontive, that's, you know, the more loving way to be with family and friends. Yeah, Marie.
So once upon a time, I was also very conservative, and I had a perspective and a viewpoint, and I argued my viewpoint, and everybody else, like, I couldn't understand. How could they not see it? It's in black and white, right here, the way I read it. Everybody else was just fine. And over the years, I've come to understand and appreciate, and especially being in this community, is that we're going to, and most people will simply find evidence of whatever their core belief is. And so for people who want to believe that a certain religion is bad, they're going to find every evidence of that. Whether it's Christianity, I mean, we've done atrocities in the name of Christ, you know, in history, right? As well as all different religions. And the conversation that I've had recently around that has been, let's look at the spirit behind the teachings versus what people have taken out of it and done in the name of it. You know, because everybody's going to find the words that'll back up whatever they really want to believe in.
Yeah, good for you. I mean, that's true.
But I think that my own background has helped me be more compassionate with people who kind of are
Are
very
that way?
high strung on this is their belief, and I'm like, okay, I get it, because I used to be that way.
My cousin was on Facebook, and she started dishing Muslims. And I said, who do you know that's Muslim? Well, I don't know any. And I said, well, all the Muslims I do know are anything but what you described. Fortunately, one of her friends who's said, they have interfaith meetings at the Quaker House. I will take you. I don't know if she went or not, but I'm really glad he stepped in, because he was trying, again, do you know anyone? If you don't know anyone, how can you say so? Chris?
When I first moved here, or we moved up to Waleska, I called the Canton Police Department to find out if I could volunteer to work with any women prisoners. And I had to go through a Protestant Southern minister who regulated and who was in charge of this program. So the first thing he wanted to know was, did I go to church? And I said, yes. And he says, where? And I said, I go to an interfaith community in Roswell. And he said, what's that? And I said, well, we honor all faiths and all paths to God. And he says, well, I don't believe in people he says, I don't believe in those do-it-yourself kind of people. And I said, well, we're not exactly like that. I said, we honor all faiths, and we don't try to change anybody. But, and he says, well, we're Christian. And I said, well, that's great. I said, but, what do you offer for people who are Jewish and Muslim and other traditions, or none? And he says, well, we're Christian. And I said, okay. I said, do you offer any sort of groups for the other people? And he says, what other people? And I said, well, the other people like Muslims and Jewish people and anybody else. And he says, no, he says, we're Christian. And that was all I could get out of him the whole entire time. And I said, well, I'm really sorry that you don't offer that. I said, I would like to be able to come over and do that. And he says, no, he says, we're Christian. And I said, well, okay. I said, maybe I'll call back, and hopefully by then you'll be a little more open-minded. And then I just let it go, because obviously he was not going to be a little more open-minded. And then I met another man. He was quite elderly, and he was absolutely certain that God was a white old man. He was not going to change his mind.
So all you can do is just let them be.
Yep.
Not try to, we don't want to evangelize or proselytize. Just be loving. Again, love is what is the common denominator in all faiths. Denise, did you have your hand up?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, that's good, Glory.
I've used my Facebook page to go into these kind of discussions, and I have some high school acquaintances basically who have basically made their Facebook page, their mission of their Facebook page, to relink to every horrible thing that ISIS or Sharia law has done. And we cannot deny that a small percentage of the followers of Islam have become extremists and are committing acts of violence. But I need to find some links to show them that there is another Islam that they're not acknowledging. So
ICI, Interfaith Community Initiatives. There's one right there for you.
Okay.
In fact, we had someone, I was at a meeting with people from ICI, and they had someone from Washington, D.C. come down. And I was talking to him, and he said there are 40, or I said there are at least 40 interfaith groups here in the greater Atlanta area. And he said, are they in conflict with each other? And I said, no. In fact, you'll see the same faces at a lot of these different meetings. I said, don't you have anything like that in Washington? He said, it wouldn't go over in Washington, D.C. And he was coming down to Atlanta to learn how we did it down here, because they were struggling to try to get interfaith groups together up in Washington, D.C. area. So our first step in all of this is to start the dialogues. Start getting together. Come to some of our monthly interfaith group meetings. I mean, we had a blast at the Sikh temple. Okay.
I just heard one time, I've been at Union North, that our race is human and our religion is love. And that just says a lot.
And you'll see, we were even hearing of this at the Sikh temple, we've heard at other places, that love is part of it. Peace is part of it. Understanding and compassion is part of it. And all of them are saying the same thing. I mean, like even the sign you got when you were down at the protest. It was like, I'm marching for this interconnectedness. And so, according to Johnson and Ord, who wrote the book, the most important goal of the interspiritual education is the cultivation of experiential unity consciousness. It's get off your butt and do something with this. Come with us to some of these things. Get to know, if you don't know someone who's Muslim, come up to the meditation. They're there for you. Get to know somebody. I mean, by the time we left the Sikh temple, we were getting hugged by everyone. They were wanting to take pictures with us. You know, Bee grabbed me, one of the ladies that greeted us grabbed me, and she said, I gotta have a picture with you. So we had our faces next to each other, we're taking pictures, and it was just, you know, they were just so happy that we cared to come over and learn something about them. So the coming interspiritual age begins with what we're doing already. Get on board. Be part of what we're doing, and we're going to offer as many opportunities for you in as many ways as possible. That's a job of what we can do here at One World Spiritual Center. Through contemplation, direct connection, and communication with other faiths, we learn what we have in common. And our job here is to give you every opportunity to see that happen. We're part of this interspiritual age that's coming up. So let's take that into meditation.